Hello again, this is Brad Wenz from the Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District with your Conservation Report. I came across an interesting article the other day about cover crop seeding by Paula Moore in the December 2016 issue of the Farmer magazine. And this article is entitled Keeping It Green. It's a story about Keith Hartman, who's a cash grain and swine operator near Gibbon, Minnesota, which, by the way, is between New Ulm and Glencoe, down in the south central part of the state. Well, Keith wanted to be able to establish a cover crop mix in his corn-soybean rotation. And his goal was to improve soil health so he could reduce tillage and hold nutrients in the soil. And his challenge, like we've seen with other farmers with row crop rotations, the challenge is being able to establish a diverse cover crop mix early enough in the season to provide benefits. It's relatively easy to get winter small grains in these corn-soybean rotations, but it's hard to get that diverse mix because these have to be seeded a little bit earlier in order to get enough growth for their benefits. Well, then Keith decided to experiment with interseeding cover crops into standing corn early in the growing season. But he couldn't find equipment to do the job, so like most farmers, he decided he was going to build one himself. So the first year, he built a 3-row interseeder using a Gandy gravity drop seeder with Yetter strip fresheners installed on the toolbar and firming wheels. It's kind of a prototype type piece of equipment. It's only 3 rows. And in June 2015, with this new equipment that he made, he seeded 25 acres when the corn was at about V6, which is about 12 to 18 inches tall. The cover crop mix germinated in 3 days. It doesn't say in the article, what he seeded there, but one of the plants was annual ryegrass. And then the cover crops pretty much went dormant at about V10 when the corn canopy covered the row, and they stayed dormant until September. Then the cover crop started growing and actually flourished when the corn dried and the leaves dropped down. The cover crop actually stayed alive until they ran into some 20-degree temperatures in November. Keith saw no negative yield effect with the cover crops that he interseeded in the corn, and it did not rob the crop of nitrogen because he performed a stock nitrate test and it showed adequate supply of nitrogen in the corn stalk. So, encouraged by his success with the prototype machine that he built in 2015, he decided to build a 12-row, 30-inch interseeder that would also side dress nitrogen. He used grant funds from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture and the Minnesota Corn Growers Association to build this machine, and he also had some funding for the actual seeding from the Natural Resources Conservation Service EQIP program. He used a Great Plains NutriPro 4000 fertilizer applicator with a side dress bar for the liquid nitrogen. He mounted Yetter strip fresheners on the applicator. A Gandy Orbit air seeder drops seed in the row, which is rolled by the firming wheels. His brother Philip, who's a machinist, actually designed the wheel brackets for the firming wheels on this machine. And in 2016, actually on June 21st, he seeded 125 acres with this new cover crop seeder that he built. He planted 10 pounds per acre of annual ryegrass, radish, turnip, canola, and crimson clover. And also he side dressed 85 pounds of 28% nitrogen with this machine. As in 2015, the cover crops really grew well. And again, he found no negative effects on the corn yield. And again, his stock nitrate test showed optimal nitrogen in the plant. Keith also no-tilled some soybeans into the annual ryegrass from the 2015 seeding that he put in with the prototype machine. And then he terminated the ryegrass and there was actually no difference in yields compared to the conventional tillage. This saved him some tillage costs. If you remember, his goal was to reduce his tillage, so it looks like he's planning on no-tilling the soybeans into these cover crops the next year. He might even try interseeding the cover crops into the soybeans this year, and he'll probably do it just before the soybeans canopy out. The Hartmans will have a field day on their farm in 2017 or 18, and this is a requirement of their grants to build the machine. So you'll have to contact the Minnesota Department of Ag or the Minnesota Corn Growers for details on the field days that they're going to have down by the Gibbon. Farmers all across the country are seeing benefits of improving soil health with reduced tillage and cover crops, but the challenge is fitting these things into their cropping systems, and many are coming up with some pretty innovative ways of getting it done. We hope to show farmers more ways that local producers are getting cover crops into the rotation during our Ag Fair, which is scheduled for March 14th at Elmer Z's in Sauk Center. So stay tuned for more information about our Ag Fair that's coming on March 14th at Elmer Z's, and we'll have more details a little bit later on as we get a little bit closer to the event. Thank you very much. This has been Brad Wenz from the Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District with your Conservation Report.